Hi everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. Most men discover their wife's infidelity through an unexpected homecoming, an overheard conversation, or undeniable physical evidence. In my case, it was much simpler. My wife emailed me. It was an accident, of course, one of those careless mistakes people make when rushing. I figured her email program suggested my name, and she clicked without checking. A common oversight, but one with devastating consequences. After 18 years of marriage, I was surprised to receive an email from and with the subject line, "About yesterday." Since yesterday had been an uneventful Wednesday, I was curious why she felt compelled to write about it. As I read, my pulse quickened. She expressed how wonderful the day had been and how much she looked forward to next week. She signed it, "Your Lady." I had been at work all day Wednesday. As far as I knew, so had Anne. We hadn't even spoken on the phone. Yet, she returned home that night unusually cheerful. At the time, I thought nothing of it. Now, the betrayal was glaringly obvious. My first instinct was to confront her immediately, demand an explanation, force a confession. But logic tempered my emotions. If she realized her mistake, she might concoct an excuse, dismiss the email as a joke, or even gaslight me into believing I had misunderstood. A direct confrontation might yield nothing. So I decided to wait. Would she recognize her blunder and try to cover it up? If not, I now had valuable insight into her next rendezvous, and worked in real estate, giving her flexible hours, a perfect cover for an affair. That evening, I observed her closely. She came home later than I did, her demeanor perfectly normal. If she had realized the mistake, she didn't show it. I played my role, acting as though nothing had changed. But sleep eluded me. I lay awake, analyzing every possibility, untangling the knot of doubt and betrayal. Could there be an innocent explanation? A misunderstanding? Acting rashly could destroy my marriage. But if the email was proof of an affair, my marriage was already at risk. I needed clarity before making any decisions. The next morning, I hired a private detective. If Anne had done nothing unusual on Wednesday, I would have some peace of mind. If my fears were justified, I would know the truth and take appropriate action. Wednesday arrived, and left for work as usual. She returned home late, appearing completely normal. I forced myself to act the same, burying my anxiety beneath a mask of indifference. Thursday, I met with the detective. He confirmed my worst suspicions. There were photos, and at a motel near the airport, entering a room with a man, leaving hand in hand. The detective had seen it all before. "It's never easy to confirm suspicions," he told me. I sat in silence for a long minute before responding. "I need your help again." If the motel was their regular meeting place, I wanted more than photos. I wanted indisputable proof. The detective explained that with the right incentive, the motel manager could provide access to surveillance footage or even allow a hidden camera in the room. I agreed without hesitation. Back in my office, I tried to work but couldn't concentrate. Now that the doubts were gone, so was my ability to focus on anything else. My mind raced through a storm of emotions: rage, betrayal, humiliation. And then, another realization hit me like a sledgehammer. I knew her lover, Mark Bradshaw, our neighbor, our friend. Anne's accidental email made sense now. My last name, McBishop, must have autofilled when she began typing Mark. She had been careless, too distracted by her emotions to double-check. Knowing the identity of her lover only deepened the betrayal. Mark and his wife, Bobby, had been part of our lives for years. We had shared meals, gone to the movies together. I had never noticed a spark between them. Was I blind? Or were they simply that good at deception? The pain was unbearable, but I refused to let it paralyze me. I needed a plan. For hours, I debated my options. I envisioned revenge, exposing them, humiliating them. I even imagined begging and to stay. My thoughts spiraled between anger and self-pity, but eventually, I found clarity. I would strike strategically. My plan had two objectives: divide and conquer. First, I needed to drive a wedge between them, expose the cracks in their relationship and force them apart. Second, I would focus on winning and back, making her see the benefits of returning to me. I began preparing meticulously. I purchased a recording system for our home phone and a voice-activated device for Anne's car. She likely spoke to Mark while driving, thinking it was private. I couldn't tap her mobile, but I could monitor her calls in the car. Next, I accessed her email. She used her home computer to check work emails, and I knew where she stored her passwords. Within minutes, I had access and set up automatic forwarding for all her messages. Their affair was still in its honeymoon phase. My goal was to end it before it strengthened further. A new email soon arrived, confirming their next meeting. Are we still on for Wednesday? And absolutely. One time, one place. Can't wait. That was all I needed. On Wednesday, I drove to Anne's office and waited until she returned from lunch. Then, under the guise of a casual stroll through the parking lot, I deflated one of her car tires. Just enough to strand her, but not enough to arouse suspicion. As I drove away, I smirked, wondering what she would do without transportation that day. Sure enough, 20 minutes before Anne was supposed to meet Mark at the motel, she called me, asking for help. I assured her not to worry, mentioning that my workload was light that day and that I could fix her car. I explained that I just needed to finish one thing before heading over. I deliberately waited an additional 15 minutes before leaving, timing my arrival to coincide with her scheduled meeting with Mark. When I got there, she was waiting by her car, visibly impatient. I apologized for the delay, explaining that the job took longer than expected. As and paced in frustration, I changed her will slowly and methodically. I had strategically parked my car behind hers, ensuring she couldn't leave until I was done. After putting on the spare tire, loading the flat one into the trunk, and washing my hands, over an hour had passed since she was supposed to meet Mark. I apologized again, feigning concern that my delay might have affected her client meeting. She sighed and muttered, "He'll just have to understand." During the tire change, I noticed Anne's phone ringing multiple times, but she ignored the calls, likely avoiding a conversation with Mark in my presence. My suspicions were confirmed when I returned to my office and saw their heated email exchange. Mark had been waiting at the motel for over an hour, growing increasingly frustrated over the flat tire. Good, I thought, knowing I had thrown a wrench in their plans. That evening after dinner, I led Anne to the sofa, placed her feet on my lap, and started massaging them. "Long day?" I asked, my touch gentle. Initially wary of my motives, she eventually relaxed, a pleased expression spreading across her face. I let a few days pass before making my next move. On Monday, I sent a large floral arrangement to her office with a note. "For the best wife a man could ever have." She acted touched when she came home, thanking me warmly and mentioning how envious her colleagues had been. Curious, she asked what the occasion was, pointing out that I had never done anything like this before. I hugged her and simply said, "I just wanted to remind you how much you mean to me." From her emails, I learned they were planning another rendezvous in a few days. I knew tampering with her car again would be too obvious, so I let her go to the meeting place undisturbed, but I followed her discreetly. She entered the motel, where Mark had booked a room. I parked around the back, slipped in through a side entrance, and pulled the fire alarm. Then I waited outside and watched as guests spilled into the parking lot, confused and irritated. I didn't see Anne or Mark, but I was certain they were among the disrupted crowd. Seething. Back in my office, I checked their emails. "And what the hell? This is ridiculous." Mark fumed. "I'm so angry I could scream." "Mark, I'm sorry," she replied. "It's not my fault. Next time, pick a place that won't be a fire hazard." "Yes, that sounds like my Anne," I thought, satisfied. That evening, Anne came home tense, but her mood shifted when she saw our dining table elegantly set, the aroma of her favorite dish filling the air. "What's all this?" she asked, half laughing in disbelief. "I called your office earlier and found out your client meeting was delayed," I said smoothly. "Figured you wouldn't want to cook, so I took care of it." Her smile faltered for a split second, but she quickly recovered. "That's so sweet of you, darling," she said. "You treat me so well." As I did the dishes, I felt her watching me. I knew my plan was working, but Mark remained undeterred. His next email made it clear. He was eager for another attempt, this time at the Hyatt Hotel. At noon the day before their supposed meeting, I called the Hyatt. Identifying myself as Mark Bradshaw, I canceled his room reservation. The clerk thanked me, mentioning how much it helped since a major conference had overbooked the hotel. The next day, I arrived at the Hyatt and took a seat in the lobby, hiding behind a newspaper. Soon, Ann and Mark walked in, appearing affectionate, until they reached the front desk. Mark's expression darkened. "What do you mean my reservation was canceled?" he snapped. "I'm sorry, sir, but it was canceled earlier today," the clerk said. "And unfortunately, we're fully booked," and looked furious. "Forget it. Let's go." Mark tried to calm her, but she was already heading for the exit. I watched them leave, satisfaction washing over me. My work here was done. That evening, when Ann returned home, I greeted her at the door. "We're going out," I announced. She blinked. "Where?" "It's a surprise," I said, leading her to my car. I turned on soft music as we drove in silence. She studied me, suspicion flickering in her eyes. But when we arrived at the Hyatt, she turned pale. "Why are we here?" she asked cautiously. I simply smiled. "You'll see." We entered the rooftop restaurant, its rotating dome offering a breathtaking view of the city. I gave my name to the waiter, and he led us to a table with a perfect view, and hesitated. "How did you manage to get a table? There's a huge convention in town." "It wasn't a problem," I said smoothly. "I called earlier today and booked it." She didn't react, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. I knew she was comparing my effortless success with Mark's failed attempt. I poured her a glass of champagne and raised a toast. "To the most beautiful woman in the room." She smiled, though there was tension behind it. As the meal progressed, oysters, salmon salad, raspberries with liqueur, she gradually relaxed. By the time we left, she was snuggled against me in the car, her guard down. I smiled in the darkness. The game was far from over. The combination of drinks and oysters had the desired effect. Sensing that Ann might be both frustrated and exhilarated after her failed dates, I led her straight upstairs to our bedroom. Suggesting she change into her nightgown while I took care of some preparations, I watched as she turned to the closet. I quickly checked the guest bedroom to ensure everything was ready. Returning, I was pleased to see that she had chosen a transparent black nightgown that revealed and concealed her curves in equal measure. Guiding her to the guest bedroom, where scented candles flickered around the open bed, I whispered that for tonight, touch and scent would be the only senses she needed. Placing a sleep mask over her eyes, I led her to the bed, undressing her with slow, deliberate movements before laying her onto the fresh linen sheets. I waved a bottle of almond butter under her nose, instructing her to inhale its rich aroma. Warming some water in my hands, I began a slow foot massage, eliciting a soft moan from her lips. Gradually, I worked my way up, ensuring every inch of her was relaxed, focusing on her shoulders and arms before turning her over and repeating the process. Each sound of pleasure from her lips confirmed my efforts were working. Our shared pleasure reached its peak before we finally collapsed together. When I removed the mask from her face, she appeared either faint or utterly exhausted. Carrying her back to our bedroom, I covered her with a sheet, and she drifted into a deep sleep. After a quick sponge bath, I returned to bed, satisfied with how the evening had unfolded. Ann and I typically kept different schedules, but the next morning, she woke early. I found her downstairs, coffee and breakfast already prepared. Her eyes sparkled as she expressed her gratitude for the special night. I smiled, responding that I was happy she enjoyed it and that I would remember it for a long time. She returned my smile and I felt a shift, a sense that I was finally making real progress with her. But later that day, my suspicions were confirmed when I intercepted an email from Mark. He was still trying to arrange a meeting with her. He apologized for the Hyatt Hotel incident, feigning confusion about his lost reservation. Ann's response was interesting. She suggested that maybe it wasn't meant to be. But Mark pressed on, proposing that they meet at their lake house on Saturday, as Bobby would be out of town. No booking issues, no fire alarms, just a hot time, signed with love. And Mark confidently noted that Mac always played golf on Saturdays, making their escape easy. I realized my plan had reached a critical juncture. If I lost momentum now, all my progress would be undone. But I couldn't cancel my golf game, it would raise too much suspicion, and could easily find another excuse to leave. Tampering with her car was too risky. I needed a way to force her to change her plans at the last minute. Then the perfect idea struck me. A simple yet effective solution, requiring only one phone call. The rest of the week, I followed my routine, biding my time. On Friday night, while Anne was asleep, I slyly swapped her phone battery with a dead one. If she tried to contact Mark, it would have to be from the home phone where I could listen in. Saturday morning arrived, and descended the stairs, dressed not in her usual casual attire but in an elegant skirt and blouse. She was preparing to leave, but as my golf departure time approached, I remained seated, showing no intention of leaving. She watched me, her impatience growing. When the clock struck 10, she finally turned to me, demanding, "Aren't you playing golf today?" Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, and opened the door to find her sister, Miriam, standing on the doorstep with a bright smile. Mac had invited her for the weekend, a surprise arranged days ago, and, though momentarily caught off guard, was delighted to see her sister. They embraced warmly. She turned to me, realization dawning in her eyes. She understood now why I hadn't left for golf. Miriam and Anne were close, but distance kept them from seeing each other often. Anne quickly masked her initial disappointment and welcomed her in. I suggested that she might want to change into something more elegant for the day, though I assured her she looked beautiful as she was, and blushed but played along, heading to the guest room. Moments later, I heard a muffled curse. When she returned, holding her lifeless phone, she frowned. "My phone's dead." I feigned sympathy. "That's unfortunate. You could use the home phone." She shook her head. "It's not important." And just like that, her plans were foiled. The weekend passed in domestic bliss. I spent time bonding with my sister-in-law, ensuring and never had the opportunity to slip away. When Miriam left on Sunday afternoon, she hugged me warmly, turning to Anne with a smile. "You have a special husband," and winced slightly but forced a smile, nodding. That night, after Anne went to bed, I checked the home phone recording. As expected, she had called Mark early Sunday morning, explaining that her unexpected visitor had ruined their plans. Their exchange was revealing. Disappointment hung between them. By Monday, the cracks in their relationship had widened. Their emails confirmed what I had hoped for. "Mark, are we still meeting this week?" And, "I don't think so. Mark, this is getting too troublesome and starting to annoy me. Besides, Mac has been really nice to me lately, and I feel pretty guilty about running to you behind his back. I think we need to get this over with. And no, I'm serious. It's over. Mark, well, I can't say I'm not disappointed. You're still an attractive lady, but maybe it's for the best. I don't want to lose Bobby either, but I hope we can still be friends. And, of course, we will remain friends, just not friends with privileges." A victory. I had systematically dismantled their affair, but there was still one final act left. That evening, Anne returned home looking dejected, her eyes occasionally betraying the emotions swirling inside her. I played my role well, expressing concern. She dismissed it, claiming she was simply in a bad mood. I nodded, giving her space, though inwardly, I knew she was mourning the loss of her secret lover. The next evening, as we sat in the study, I held an Edgar Allan Poe book in my lap, and curled up beside me, asking about my choice. "The Cask of Amontillado," I answered. She tilted her head. "I don't know that one." She looked into my eyes, her voice soft. "You've been so kind to me these past weeks. I feel very fortunate to have you." Her gratitude made my heart soar, but I remained composed. Then, for a split second, guilt flashed across her face, her eyes glistening. "I really don't deserve you," she whispered. I met her gaze, my voice calm but laced with finality. No, I don't deserve you. Reaching for the desk drawer, I pulled out a stack of photos and tossed them onto her lap. The evidence of her betrayal lay before her, undeniable. Initially confused by the change in my tone, and struggled to understand what I had given her. As she focused on the frames and grasped their contents, a wail erupted from her lips. Oh my God, no, no. I handed her a copy of the divorce application my lawyer had filed earlier that day. Her breath caught in her throat. But I thought isn't there any way? No, I coldly interrupted, passing her another stack of papers. And if you're curious about Mark, here's a copy of the letter I sent to Bobby tonight, along with the detective's report. I also sent a similar letter to your sister Miriam, explaining why I am divorcing you. She moaned in pain and sobbed again. I just don't understand. You've been so loving and caring all these weeks. I can't believe you're being so cruel right now. Does all this mean nothing, my dear? I met her gaze evenly. When you started your little romance, you put an end to all my love for you. That's why I spent the last few weeks trying to end your relationship with Mark. As for how I treated you, well, I wanted to make sure you understood just how much you lost when you betrayed me. Her sobs deepened as she clutched at the documents, her fingers trembling. The weight of my words settled over her, each one stripping away the illusions she'd clung to. My goal was to take away from you the same thing you took from me, I continued. And from what I can tell, my plan worked perfectly, and collapsed onto the sofa, racked with pitiful, shuddering sobs. I stood unmoving, watching her crumble beneath the force of her own choices. Then, without another word, I placed the Poe book I had been reading atop the stack of documents. The text remained open to the cask of Amontillado, with a passage carefully highlighted in bold ink, the Montresor family motto: "No one dishonors me with impunity." Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.